Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today at True Colors for a special conversation with Roy Broderick Jr. Welcome, Roy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, we're looking forward to an in-depth conversation with you today. And before we begin, I just want to give our viewers just a brief introduction. Roy is the founder of Intuition Consulting, and he is the president and CEO of Authentique Agency, which is a full-service marketing firm here in Atlanta, Georgia, that specializes in creating marketing campaigns that reflect the authentic, multicultural, and LGBTQ experience. He is widely known as a marketing genius. Throughout his impressive career, he has worked with a number of influential companies such as Coca-Cola and AT&T, but also many arts-focused organizations and companies such as MTV Networks, VH1 Networks, Turner Entertainment Networks, Columbia Pictures, Marvel, Screen Gems, Tyler Perry Studios, United Way of Greater Atlanta, and the National Museum of African American Music, to name a few. Roy is also on our board of trustees for True Colors, and we have thoroughly enjoyed having him in our True Colors family. All right, Roy, well, let's get to the questions. To start, tell us a little bit about how you determined that marketing was the area you wanted to pursue vocationally. Was this a surprise revelation, or was marketing something you always wanted to do? And what prepared you most for the impressive career you've had?
Yeah, so first, thanks for having me. Marketing was not in my plan at all when I graduated from high school here in Atlanta, Georgia, from Frederick Douglass High School. And I went to the University of Florida on a full academic scholarship to go and pursue nursing as a career. I wanted to do nursing to not only help people and always have a job, as my mother would say. But I really wanted to also be a travel nurse. I could still see the world and work with different types of folks and while providing healthcare. And in my first semester of college with chemistry, we did not get along. I was flunking chemistry. My professor wrote the book. So it was this weird dynamic of like everybody was wrong and she was always right. And we had a community service component for a class, and I volunteered in the emergency room, Shands Hospital, which is on campus at the University of Florida. My first day, I'm in the ER. I pass out because someone came in with a gunshot, couldn't take the blood. And the next day, I found myself in the Career Advisement Center to try to find another major. And what we did was an assessment for me to figure out, what have I been spending my time outside of the classroom doing? What excites me? And I took a personality test, and what's crazy about it is marketing was number one for my career. It said that I would end up vice president of marketing.
Wow.
I did not know this probably until 4 years ago. I was literally cleaning up some paperwork and came across the results and was like, wow, I could have saved a lot of time and money if I just looked at the paper. But I finished with a communications degree. And with my communications degree, I jumped into entertainment marketing. And so worked with a lot of the brands that you said there, and really enjoyed doing marketing, coming up with campaigns for new releases, continuing shows. But I started to fall in love with this idea of multicultural marketing. And while it was common, probably not as common as it is today, it was something that folks would think about more of a second thought than a first. And I said, all right, let me kind of try to explore that. And so, here I am, 8 years later, and I have my own agency. I still laugh when I think about it sometimes because I definitely didn't plan this, but it's been great.
And what would you say prepared you most for the career you've had?
So I would say, honestly, just me having to be resilient with everything. I am a person that, I get bored pretty easily. So when I'm bored with something, I tend to want to do something totally different. And with my career, I decided, hey, I'm going to sit in these roles for as long as I can, but as long as I'm learning. And when the learning stopped, or when I felt like, you know what, there's no path forward here. I'm going to be stuck. I never wanted to be that person. I used to meet folks that had been in these companies for 20, 30 years, and I would be so perplexed, like, you stayed in the same place? Like, you didn't do anything else? And so um, as great as that is for some folks, for me, it just didn't work that way. And it kept me competitive. It kept me always moving. And sometimes roles were great. Sometimes they weren't as great, but I wanted to make sure that I left the role understanding something more about myself as well as the marketing industry. And so it just really started to be kind of building blocks as I went throughout my career.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you've touched on this a bit about your desire to tell the multicultural perspective through your work, and your agency actually says that it views brands and marketing, quote, through the lens of culture. Can you explain how this affects your approach to marketing and why this is significant when marketing to specifically to communities of color?
Yes. So for us, we tell brands and clients that we meet them at the intersection of consumers' identities. And what that means is everyone is more than one thing. So whether you're a Black gay male or you're a cisgender white woman who's a veteran, right? Like there's so many different things that can make up a person. And so we try from a marketing lens to make sure in any targeted communications, any messaging, any creative that we showcase exactly who we're trying to reach. A lot of brands don't do this. But this approach helps because it makes sure that something's super targeted. It hits folks in the face so they know it's for them. And then for supporters, allies, or just community folks in general, they find those unifiers: music, arts, culture, sports, things that they identify with, that help them support other organizations, help them buy certain products. And it all goes hand in hand kind of with the evolution of where society is going today. While Gen Zers and folks behind them don't prefer labels as much, and they like to kind of be fluid with their identity, they still want you to understand all the things they could be. And so that's where we are kind of from a marketing standpoint right now. Brands are trying to still get their footing and stay traditional to sometimes the company values that, founders might have had or things they've been doing for years, and trying to figure out how do they go into this new age, this new consumer. I mean, even think about like COVID, right? Like we might forever have people that do not leave their house. So how do you market to those individuals versus someone like me who will say, you know what, I'm gonna have my mask, I'm gonna have my precautions, but I'm gonna kind of continue to get out there. So
Yeah, right. I would imagine this is a great it's a great time of change, and even in marketing. Which I will get back to COVID later, but I'm glad you're already thinking along those lines. Many of the companies and organizations you've worked with are arts focused. Is this something that you deliberately sought? And is your approach different when working with an arts or cultural institution that serves people of color?
So for us, it definitely wasn't on purpose. When we look at who should be a client for the firm, we believe that all money isn't good money. We want to look at your values. We want to look at your core strengths. We want to make sure we can help you. Our community, our company pillars are community, culture, and purpose. So we look at everything, every opportunity through those lenses when we're trying to decide if someone's a great fit. But we also are very authentic. So, I mean, hence the name, but we really try to make sure that we can be honest and transparent with clients, so that they know that they are getting the best bang for their buck, but also true expertise. From an arts organization standpoint, what we see is that it normally falls in the same realm of a nonprofit where there's limited budget. You're spending most of your money operating or putting on a show and doing those things. And so you just kind of need folks in seats and folks, supporting you, donors, et cetera. And what we find is that a lot of times they lack the strategy, and they lack the strategy year over year, or they lack the actual messaging that they need. There's usually not a level of consistency. There's usually some type of something that's not connecting. So whether it's the survey you take from the audience versus what you put in your newsletter, et cetera. And so what we do is we connect the dots and try to make it to where it's one ecosystem that works for them, because we never want clients to be a crutch and always need us. We want to train, develop, and educate so that when the money needs to go to something else, it can. But you have a plan and a strategy that can get you through year over year.
Yeah. Well, and I'm specifically interested also about your involvement with the fabulous National Museum of African American Music, which is located in Nashville, Tennessee, and what it means to you during, of course, this is the month of Black Music History Appreciation, and so many are thinking about the value of or just the contributions of African Americans to the musical landscape of the country. So tell us a bit about what it means to you to work with such a culturally significant institution that celebrates and honors the music of our people.
Yeah, so NAMM, as we call it, the National Museum of African American Music, is a museum that opens this summer. So it's something that isn't open yet, but it's been a project that's been in the making for over 20 years. If you can imagine, Nashville, which is predominantly white, downtown, Fifth and Broadway, a museum that's telling the story of African Americans and how we created American music. Not how we created African American music, how we created American music, because African American or Black music is the American soundtrack. And so the museum tells that story chronologically through from slave songs all the way forward to Beyonce and Drake of today. It takes you through over 50 genres and subgenres, and it's a project for us that's bigger than us, right? It's true legacy building, and we're blessed to be their agency of record and control all of their branding and communications and messaging, and even planning their grand opening experiences. So it's such an amazing thing. And a lot of folks sometimes get them mixed up with the Smithsonian, that's NMAC, that's in DC.
Yeah.
Very easy to do so. But the difference is NMAC has that one floor, half a room that's dedicated to music. But this museum is 56,000 square feet that tells the whole story. And so that's the key differentiator between the two of them. It's not a part of the Smithsonian brand. This is something that private equity and corporations have donated to a lot of the state of Tennessee, and the city of Nashville and their tourism bureau has funded this over $90 million development. So we're super excited for it to open. But again, the great thing is that it's a museum, and the museum's leadership believes in not being stale. So the museum has a lot of interactives. It's very technology. There's fun. There's something for everyone to do. So it doesn't feel like you're at just a typical museum. It's a music museum. And so there'll be a lot of different things to do, and even some ways to carry the conversation home with you. So it's just a great project.
Well, and I love that the museum is located in Nashville. I was born and raised in Tennessee, but of course, with Nashville having the world famous Fisk Jubilee Singers, which were founded in the late 19th century. Of course, the African American chorus group there that basically saved the university, and just such a rich Black musical history there. And if I recall, I believe the museum is planning to open around Labor Day this year.
Yep. So September this year, they'll be opening, and tickets are already on sale and all those things. And the great thing about Fisk is the museum has a great relationship with them as well, and they'll be one of our temporary exhibits that will showcase early next year. A whole exhibit dedicated just to the Fisk Jubilee Singers, which would be amazing. And so a lot of folks don't know that story, Brandall, but it's a great story, and really an amazing effort that was led by that group.
I love that. Well, I will have to mark my calendar for that for that event. I just love that history. Of course, I also would like to just know, does music play a role in your work? People may not often associate music with marketing, but do you find that there's some sort of a connection with you?
Definitely. As a unifier for all types of consumer groups, entertainment, movies, film, arts, music is number one of how folks can stay connected. I mean, from a daily standpoint, I listen to music all the time. There's music playing in the office, there's music playing in the headphones. We have special music on our conference lines. Like it's all a part of us. And we want to make sure that we keep it around us. And we also recognize just the many influences, right, that African Americans have had historically, and how I can listen to, Anita Baker sing one thing and then hear Layla Hathaway's version, and then hear a remix of something that maybe Taurus Lane is doing. And so it's just a way to really show time and endlessness in the true contribution. So it's a part of us, a part of me. I grew up with music and continue to really hold it dear to my heart.
Yeah, I love that. Music is the great connector. Of course, during this time of the coronavirus, and you started to speak a bit about the effect of the virus of the pandemic on marketing. But do you expect that the virus will affect the approach for marketing agencies in the month to come? Is there anything, I don't know, that you've already noticed as far as some specific asks from the companies that you work with? And as you look forward, what do you anticipate some of the possibly big changes will be?
Yeah, so I think for now, COVID has definitely halted a lot of brands and what they've normally done. I mean, you can look at things like Essence Festival that was canceled.
Hmm.
That's huge for any large brand trying to reach African American women. Millions and millions of dollars that were allocated are now on hold and or not being spent. So it definitely will impact agencies that way. But what has happened is kind of a turn of events, right? We're in a global pandemic. Now we have kind of a wokeness among African Americans with protests and peaceful exercises to really push the narrative that we're tired and we demand peace. And so with that, you see this new age of brands trying to figure out what's the right messaging, how do we show we care, and then you have some that are silent because they don't know what to do, or maybe they don't have the same beliefs. And so it kind of spotlights and puts a nice a nice push to any marketing agency that works with clients, that does any strategic communications and so forth, to help them understand how to tell the truth, help them understand to see their shortcomings and impact change. But also, even from an employee standpoint, you see ERG groups and other leaders of C-suites and rising executives start to ask the crucial questions and want to have those conversations about, how can they really be respected at work, and how do brands really support their communities. And so I think we will continue to see a shift, but I think kind of the delay and the pause might be over because the nation's focus has definitely shifted
Yeah,
with this new uprising.
yeah. And then in connection to the protests and the uprisings you were talking about, of course, as you're saying, with the national and even international uproar over the murder of George Floyd, an unarmed African American man. Once again, we've seen this situation many times before. There has also been much discussion around the representation of African Americans in the arts, whether on stage, in the boardroom, or in the office. What are your thoughts on the recent incident and the effects it may have on fair representation moving forward? And then also, if you could speak about a bit about what you about the role that Black leaders may play during this time.
So I answer it kind of backwards. I think number one, it leads into storytelling, right? What are the stories that theater companies and writers and directors are showing? How authentic and real are they? Are they really keeping it so that it audiences can be educated, but also understand and empathize, or maybe even relate to what's happening. And I think that more than anything, it challenges the status quo, right? People think they know, people think they might understand, what someone's experience might be, or if they are hurt, but more than anything, when you take the time to look and say, all right, I went and saw this play and it reminded me of this, or, I didn't know how, this was going to affect me. Perfect example is American Son, right? Like Netflix, King Leon, right? Like the idea of how that came out months ago, it definitely affected me. But then now watching it again and seeing how Netflix has brought it to the forefront as some of their programming, as they show the African American stories and trials and tribulations. I know it's a whole group of people that have never seen it, that never would have clicked that. But now that it's on their homepage, they're learning and they're seeing it, and it feels relatable, and it's making them have the questions and reflect. And so I think that's the role that storytellers of all facets have. And I think from a theater standpoint, we have to demand that our stories are told and that they're told authentically. And I think that's the piece more than anything that is going to be a challenge, but I think it also is inspiring, right? To future leaders, future storytellers, actors, actresses, and et cetera, to be able to see that what they're doing is a revolution. It might feel a little radical, but at the end of the day, it's definitely touching and impacting folks' lives.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's talking about it. You can't overlook it. Well, for our viewers who may have an interest in marketing careers themselves, can you tell us one or two of the essential skills to success in your field? And then also, what do you feel has been your key to success?
So I'll say my key to success, and it kind of answers both of the questions. Number one is networking. So I think people really tend to think networking is, hey, I'm Roy, what do you do? But it's more than that. And I always say it's more relationship building. Because you never know who's going to sit at the table next to you. You never know. I always tell people you never can act stank or nasty to anybody because I promise you, it will come full circle some kind of way. And so, I think for me, every job that I've gotten has been on the word of someone else. So, from my first job to my fifth job, like it was someone referring me or someone knew of my work and they hit me up, And so I always say reputation management is the best thing. So allowing the work to speak for itself, but also not being afraid to actually build a relationship with folks that are entrepreneurs. Like get to know your customers, get to know your clients, like because people fall in love with people. It's not the brand, right? I could work for Pepsi today and Coke tomorrow. Like, but if you loved working with me, guess what? You will make the switch, or you at least will try it, And so, part of it is really just being authentic with that. The second thing I would say is really focusing on what your strengths are and use those. So, while we are a full service marketing agency, our core competency is marketing strategy. I love strategy all day long. I think that it is the roadmap and the North Star that leads everything else from a marketing lens, how things look, how things sound, how things breathe, how everything. And so I think for me, when I was starting my firm, that was the first service we offered. And the other ones came, but part of it is we'll pull in experts when we need to pull in experts, because I know someone else loves digital and loves coding, and someone else loves creative and brand identities. And so being able to really say, all right, I am amazing and an expert at this thing, and that's what you're offering, will definitely help you versus saying, hey, there's this wide range of things that I can do. And it's almost like the Cheesecake Factory menu, right? Where you're like pages and pages and pages of things, but you have to narrow down to that one thing you want to order. And so it's the same thing when you're thinking about how to grow in your career. And finally, I'll say be fluid, right? Sometimes, news, social trends and things will push you another way, push you a different way, like go with it. If it's something that you're interested in or a skill that you can learn and have up under your belt, that's a certification that you might be able to pull out when you need it. Why not? And so I think those are things that are often overlooked, and folks think, oh, if I just go work at this brand and I get in and I just work year over year, I'll rise up. That might be the case, but 9 times out of 10, and most people will tell you, to make a real move, you got to leave and come back. So you have to make sure you have those relationships. You have to make sure you have the work ethic as well as the experience to show what you bring to the table other than your appetite.
Yeah, that's excellent insight and advice and advice. And I have just a few rapid get to know you questions
Okay.
to round out our conversation. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word is success. That's my favorite word. Mm-hmm.
That's very positive. I like that. What is your least favorite word?
Pneumonia is actually my least favorite word because it is very hard for me to spell and I always get it wrong, and it's also a sickness. So
it is tricky to spell. What is your favorite sound?
You know, for me right now, my favorite sound is my 2.5-year-old niece saying Uncle Roy. Like when she calls my name, like that's my favorite sound because it just makes me feel perfect in the world.
Oh, I love it. What is your least favorite sound?
My least favorite sound is actually the ambulance or fire truck sirens because to me it just brings panic, and it always makes me think. You know, I remember as a kid when a fire truck or ambulance would be coming through a light and they'd stop, like the noise would stop, I'd immediately think someone died, like they didn't make it. So I would just freak out, and my parents had to, of course, explain to me that's not the case. But that would probably be my least favorite sound.
Yeah. Mm. If you could do any occupation other than your marketing and the work that you do now, what would it be?
If I could do any occupation, for me, I probably that's a hard. I probably would say I would be a therapist more than anything. I like listening to people, or a psychologist. I don't whichever one does not describe medicine. But I would probably want to do that. I like listening to people. I like to help people problem solve, and so I would say that would probably be it.
Listening is a special skill. What occupation would you least like to do?
Oh my goodness. Anything in the healthcare field that deals with blood is number one for me. Yeah. But I would probably say like an emergency services situation because I just don't like emergencies. Like, so I would think a fireman I probably would be very bad at, or animal control because I do not like all animals. So, yeah.
I'm with you about the animal piece.
I thought about that one, like, that would be one, like, go rescue the raccoon. Yeah.
Well, my final question is, what inspires you above all else?
What inspires me about all else is that...
What inspires you above all else?
Oh, above all else. I would probably say the idea of legacy. And, you know, I spoke about resilience earlier. I think it's a superpower that African Americans and any multicultural group, LGBTQIA, any group that has to face some of the challenges we face. I think it's a superpower we have, but really that idea of being a survivor, because I think the folks before us did it, and we know they didn't do it. It wasn't easy, but they did it. They got through it. That's why we're here today. And so I think that is what helps me go on. So in times like this, it's like, look, folks before me did this. I can do it. Like it's in my blood. Like I can do this. And so I think just that that ongoing fight and but also memory and realizing that, you know, folks, you know, laid down the gauntlet for us to be able to do something as simple as vote, right? So like Tuesday we voted here in Georgia, and I remember it's raining, and I was like, man, it's raining. I got to drive all the way to the poll. But then something in me said, you know, let me go do that. And if it takes me 4 hours, it takes me 4 hours because I'm sure I can go back 3 generations and they weren't able to vote. So just that idea of having that responsibility and really wanting to again, live up to the legacy that was set before me would be what keeps me going.
Yeah. Powerful, powerful. Roy, an absolute pleasure.
Oh, always. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anytime.
Thank you for for spending your time with us today, and enjoy the rest of your week. And for
Yes,
our
you all
viewers,
stay safe. Thank you.
yes, everybody stay safe. And for our viewers, stay tuned for more of our conversations. For our conversations, check out our website at truecolorstheater.org, and also on our social media, Instagram and Facebook, Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.